This is a woman by the name of Fatima. This Fatima, however, is not the daughter of the Holy Prophet, Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam. This is the death of Fatima, the daughter of Imam Musa al-Kadhim alayhi salam, who in the reports we are told either passed away on the 10th or the 12th of this month. So I thought in a few minutes, and as usual this is not to talk in depth about the topic at all, it's just to maybe hint to things to hopefully nudge you to go do your own research and think about this and see whether there's anything in the lives of these personalities that may be inspiring to us and that we can learn something from. History tells us that Imam al-Kadhim alayhi salam, Imam Musa al-Kadhim, our seventh Imam, he had a daughter by the name of Fatima. Imam al-Kadhim alayhi salam had a lot of children. He had 37 children. One of his girls was by the name of Fatima. Her and her brother, Imam al-Rida alayhi salam, Ali ibn Musa al-Rida alayhi salam, they were from the same mother, by the name of Najma Khatun. There are some narrations, some reports that Imam al-Kadhim alayhi salam had other daughters by the name of Fatima, either 2, 3, or 4. In some of the reports, the life of Imam al-Kadhim alayhi salam, we're told that there was a Fatima al-Kubra, Fatima al-Wusta, Fatima al-Sughra, and Fatima al-Ukhra. So there might have been 4 of them. This Fatima is one of them. In the reports, we're told that she was born year 173 after the migration of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. If you remember, Imam al-Rida was born year 148, which means that there was a 25-year difference between them. She spent between 6 and 10 years with Imam al-Kadhim who was then again and again jailed, and then he was poisoned in jail and he was martyred. So when he passes away, she is between 6 to 10 years. There's different reports, we're not going into details now. 2 people were extremely impactful on her life from that moment on, after the little time that she spent with her father. The first one was Imam al-Rida alayhi salam himself, Ali ibn Musa al-Rida, as we said, much older brother, and he took great care of her. And the second one was her grandmother, the mother of her father, the Sayyidah Hamida, who was also a saintly, pure woman and who took great care of this young child. We are told that from a very young age, everybody knew that she was saintly, pure, different, exceptional. There was something different about her. In one of the famous stories about her, we're told that there's a group of people, followers of Imam al-Kadhim alayhi salam, who had traveled to meet Imam al-Kadhim to ask him some questions. When they reached to his house, they saw that they were told Imam al-Kadhim alayhi salam had traveled and he will be back shortly. They waited, the Imam did not come back, so they wrote their questions and they left them in the house and they said, we'll come back to get them. And they came back shortly after that to pick up their questions. The Imam had not returned, but they were given answers to all of their questions, but at the bottom of them, Fatima, the daughter of Imam al-Kadhim alayhi salam, had written that these are the answers of Fatima bint al-Kadhim, bint Musa. And so they took the answers, they were happy with them because they respect the Imam and the answers came from his house, so they left. But as we said, she's a child. And as they were going back, they encountered Imam Musa al-Kadhim alayhi salam on his way to his own house. And so they gave him the questions and the answers and they told him, we left them, we got the answers back, this is what we got. So they want the Imam to examine these questions, they want his answers. And so the Imam did not change any of the answers that were given by his daughter. And he repeated the words 3 times, Fidaha Abuha. And so this is a first indication that we have from Imam al-Kadhim alayhi salam that this is not an ordinary person. This is not an ordinary child, where the Imam is impressed with the answers that his very young daughter is giving to these questions that are no doubt important. A quick event that happened, and that we'll go through her life very quickly. At 10 years of age, she was jailed along with most of the family members of Imam al-Kadhim alayhi salam by Harun al-Rashid at that time, and then they were let go. After Imam al-Kadhim alayhi salam, as he was dying, he left in his will that for his daughters, they are only to be married based on the counsel or the advice of Imam al-Rida alayhi salam. And that's why the daughters of Imam al-Kadhim, some historians want to say they never wanted to get married, or Imam al-Kadhim said that they should not get married. No, Imam al-Kadhim alayhi salam wrote in his will that they are only to be married based on what Imam al-Rida alayhi salam, his son Ali, was considering to be beneficial and good. The problem is that none of them got married, and the way we are to interpret this is an indication of the disastrous state in which they were living, the difficulties in which they were living, and especially for people like Fatima, the daughter of Imam al-Kadhim alayhi salam. These people who are very saintly, they need someone to be corresponding to their personality and aligned with their values and their beliefs and their conduct. And if there's no one who can match that, then of course there's not going to be that ease to be able to live with someone like that. And in addition to that, of course, as we said, this was a very, very difficult time for the entire family of Imam al-Kadhim alayhi salam and Imam al-Rida alayhi salam. They continued to live in al-Madinah al-Munawwara until year 200. At year 200, this is when al-Ma'mun forced Imam al-Rida alayhi salam to leave al-Madinah al-Munawwara and go join him in Khurasan to become the heir apparent to the throne. The Imam initially rejected this. He was forced. He was said, you either come or you get killed. So the Imam agreed and he left. His sister Fatima remained behind in Medina. She stayed for about 1 year. And here it becomes difficult to say why exactly did she leave al-Madinah al-Munawwara. Clearly she missed her brother Imam AlHasany alayhi salam. There's no doubt about that. But many of the historians who analyze this period and who talk about the letters that would come and go and so on and so forth, they say no, she left al-Madinah al-Munawwara because she had a role to play. The Imam wanted her in Khurasan with him to handle some affairs and certain things that she could handle, especially on the woman's side. She could take care of things for Imam al-Rida alayhi salam. So she might have been asked by the Imam to come join him. In any case, she took 23 people from her household, and together they formed a little caravan and they left the city of Medina towards Khurasan to go join Imam al-Rida alayhi salam. On the way, they joined another very big caravan made up of 12,000 people who were also going in that same direction in order to show their allegiance to Imam al-Rida alayhi salam, who had now become almost a year ago, a year before then, in 200, this is now in 201, after Hijrah, who had become the heir apparent. So they're there to show their allegiance. This group of people moves towards Khurasan, but they never make it there. They are attacked by the army of the Khalifa, by the army of al-Ma'mun. All 23 people of the family of Fatima Al Masuma were killed. From the 12,000 people, none made it to Khurasan. The people were either killed, or they were jailed, or they were wounded, and they set camp and they joined other areas in those lands. And she made it to the town of present day, the city of Qum. That's how far she got. She stayed in a couple of houses, I'm not going to go into the details there, until she reached a place that is well known, and she remained there for 17 days, and then she passed away. And most likely, on the first place where she had stayed, she had been poisoned, because this is a very young woman, not even 30 years old, and she is dying on the way to that city. Her aspiration, her hope was to reach her brother Imam al-Rida alayhi salam. She never did, and so she was buried there, and her mausoleum was erected. It became a shrine, and it is still a place that is visited and considered sacred and sanctified by those who understand who she is and what she represented even at that time. Maybe very quickly, some people say that this status of sainthood is sometimes attributed to people simply based on the fact that they have some sort of family relationship with someone else. So, the case of Fatima, that we refer to as Fatima Al Masuma, and we'll talk about that in a second, is clearly in contradiction with this idea. When we say that Imam al-Kadhim alayhi salam had 37 children, obviously we do not consider the 37 of them as saints. The idea of considering someone a saint and pure and immaculate and someone that we want to be inspired by and someone we want to learn from requires certain traits, requires certain things that give us the certitude that this is someone who is worthy of this. It's not just because there's a family relationship. We might respect the family relationship. There's no issue with that. But we need more before we consider someone pure. We consider someone saintly. In the case of Fatima Al Masuma, we certainly have that. And we have that to a very clear and large extent. And to us, the main criteria, as followers of the Imams, our main criteria is that we want to see what the Imams say about someone. And if they tell us that this is someone saintly and worth respecting and worth following and worth venerating, then that becomes our main truth. In addition to the fact that in this case, we have someone that if we study her life, we see that she was full of knowledge, she was full of struggle, she was full of vigor and energy, she worked with a mission, she had her values and she lived by them and she died by them. So in addition to her life, if we look at the manner in which the Imams dealt with her, we see that Fatima Al Masuma had been given the highest esteem and status and merit from the Imams themselves. And we can look at this from multiple angles. In one of the ways to look at this, if we look at the Imams when they talk about visiting her, multiple Imams have talked about visiting Fatima Al Masuma. Imam Sadiq alayhi salam spoke about a girl that would be born out of his descendants, so way before she was born. She said that she would be buried in the city of Qum, and whoever visits her grave, they will be guaranteed heaven. And that she would do an intercession to those who love her and to follow her in the afterlife. This is before she is born, and her name is Fatima, he says. Imam al-Jawad alayhi salam, so he happens to be her nephew, he talks about the Sayyidah Fatima, his aunt Fatima, and he says whoever visits her grave shall be guaranteed heaven. Imam al-Rida alayhi salam, her brother, who knew that she was trying to join him and who she never made it, he said in his lifetime, and this is an extremely important saying from Imam al-Rida about his sister. He is still alive and his sister has now passed away and she is buried in the city of Qum and he's in Khurasan. And he says, whoever visits the Ma'suma of Qum, it is as though he has visited me. Now, first of all, he is the one who is naming his sister Fatima Al Masuma. Is this the same asma and infallibility that we believe in the case of the Imam? No. She is not one of the 12 that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has told us are going to follow and form the cycle and the chain of imamah. But there's certainly something immaculate. There's certainly something pure and saintly about this woman that Imam al-Rida alayhi salam, who is unanimously considered as someone who is at the highest levels of spirituality and purity in Islam, says about her, whoever visits Al-Ma'suma, the Immaculate One of Qum, it is as though he has visited me. And this is an indication when the Imam says that, the Imam is basically saying this equal, whatever you hope to gain from visiting the Imam, whether alive or dead, as we believe, is going to be accomplished by visiting the grave of his sister Fatima alayhi salam. And of course there is this notion that comes back again and again. It doesn't mean that just because you went to visit a grave that you've now been guaranteed heaven. There's always a mention that we find in our reports that you have to be knowledgeable or recognizing of their status. In other words, you have to have a belief system in place. You know who they are, you know what they represent, you know what they stand for, and you don't have anything preventing you from receiving the benefits that that thing does. You have committed injustice and oppression against people, and then you hope to go and just because you visited a grave of a saint that everything is going to be forgiven. It doesn't work that way. But if you have done everything you need to do and you go, then you should be resting more assured that you have one further guarantee that you are on the right path and moving towards the Jannah, inshallah. I already spoke more than I wanted to. As I said, the point that we were trying to make is that when we say someone has a saintly character, someone like this woman, Fatima Al Masuma, despite her short age, she died 1200 years ago. Today her mausoleum, her shrine is still there, visited by millions every year. There's a reason for that. This does not come out of nothing. There is some sort of merit, and subhanAllah, these things usually Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who takes care of showing the greatness, the splendor, the magnificence of these people in the way that He sees fit in this world. Otherwise, who would think that this woman, young and relatively unknown at the world level at that time, who ends up passing away, dying on the way to reaching her brother, she does not even make it there. 12 centuries later, her shrine is there to be visited by millions all the time, and people consider her a saint, and they study her life, and they write books about it, and they take inspiration from every aspect of her life. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help us understand the lives of those that He loves and likes, and we take inspiration from them so that we follow in their footsteps. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
If there are any questions, concerns, comments, online or here, please let me know. I don't expect anything online. Anything here?
Just out of curiosity,
Yeah.
So I know that Imam Hussein alayhi salam, he named, if I'm not mistaken, he named all his daughters by the name of Fatima, or most of them. Is that correct?
Yes and no.
Okay. And you mentioned Imam Kazim as well. So, does it have to do with the remembrance and the bringing back the spirit of Sayyidah Fatima Zahra alayhi salam?
Exactly. So in short, Imam Hussein alayhi salam, we have a narration that says that he was calling all of his sons Ali, and that he was giving them a nickname, some other name. And in fact, this is something that, as we have explained in the past, there was a war against the name Ali at that time. So the descendants of Imam Ali alayhi salam were making it a point. And some of Bani Umayyah, when they came to Imam Hussein alayhi salam and asked him, they wanted to mock the Imam. They said, "Who is that?" They said, "Ali." "And who is that?" They said, "Ali." "Who are they sons of?" They said, "Al-Hussein." So that man, he mocked Imam Hussein alayhi salam, and he said, "Are there no other names? Has Hussein run out of names to keep calling his sons Ali?" So they came back to Imam Hussein and they informed him, and he said, "I swear that if God granted me 50 sons, I would call them all Ali." So the reason for this, as we said, is that, and this lasted for almost 80 years, where Imam Ali alayhi salam was cursed on the pulpits, and no one was allowed to be called Ali at that time. And history is clear that during that time, they were even saying that if people had been called Ali, whether they were followers of Ali or not, they were changing their name to Ulay. And if you go back in history, it's very clear, just so that they're not tormented and persecuted and oppressed based on their name. The same thing was happening to Fatima. This represented now a political thing, a political ideology, and so the Imam made a point to keep calling their daughters and their sons by these two names to make sure that that line on those values and those teachings remain alive and don't go away. And that's exactly the point that we see with Imam Al-Kazim alayhi salam. That said, it does require more study to see exactly how many daughters did he have and what were their names. Certainly he had other daughters that were not named Fatima in the case of Imam Al-Kazim alayhi salam. In the case of Imam Hussein, it needs to be discussed whether his daughters by the name of, not by the name of Fatima, were actually called Fatima, and those were their nicknames, as was traditional by the Arabs, to give a name, and one name from the father, one name from the mother, and then nicknames given to every person.